Dad's Diner, the best food in the house. Hello again. Welcome back to Dad's Diner. This is our 4th episode, and today we are going to be doing something a little different from my usual cooking fare, a vegetarian entree. I got this recipe, the original version of it, from a cookbook called The Vegetarian Epicure. I find this to be a very useful cookbook for vegetarian fare. I didn't grow up knowing very many vegetarian recipes, so if I need inspiration, I can find a lot of good things in here. So what we're going to do is we are going to stuff some Portobello mushroom caps and bake them. And you get the Portobello mushrooms. I used to get larger ones, but you get what you can find. I have about half a dozen of these mushroom caps. We're going to take the stems out and fill it with some stuffing. The recipe in the book originally called for a bread stuffing, but I have found that I enjoy making a rice-based stuffing. Ideally, I would use wild rice, but you can't always get pure wild rice. But there's a product I found just in the supermarket, this Uncle Ben's long grain and wild rice. I find this does the job pretty well. It even has its own little packet of seasonings. So we're going to have some rice, some seasonings, a few stalks of celery. As Gabe likes to say, it's full of crunchy celery goodness. And an onion. You can use a white or a yellow onion. I prefer the yellow. And an apple. The tart tanginess of the Granny Smith apple really enhances the flavor, so definitely don't leave out the green apple. So those are all the ingredients that we are going to be using, in addition to a little bit of oil, a little bit of seasonings. And so let's get all this together and start cooking. Within this recipe, there are a lot of different parts that have to be completed and put together. So over there on the left you see the vegetables and apple, which are going to need to be chopped up and sauteed later on. And in the sink there I've got the mushrooms. I'm going to remove the stems and clean them up and put them into the glass baking pan. And then over on the stove we have the pot where the rice is going to be cooking while we're doing all this, and the frying pan where we're going to saute up the vegetables before we combine them all together in the stuffing. So let's get started with the mushrooms. Okay, so the mushrooms themselves, one of the first things you have to do is remove the stems, and that will create a little hollow in here, and we'll kind of pile the stuffing up on top of it, but you don't throw away the stems. We're going to use those later. We'll put the mushrooms caps into the baking pan for now. And one thing that we're going to do after I have removed all the stems is wash everything thoroughly, because as you can see there's a bunch of dirt on these things, and so we're going to wash both the stems and the caps. The stems can be chopped up later and used as part of the stuffing, gives a little more flavor, but as you can see here I have got 6 or 7 mushroom caps, which are going to, I got an even half a dozen here. So we take the 6 mushroom caps and we put them in the baking pan, but we're going to take them out later. And then we rinse all these off, and then we're going to be ready to put the rice and the vegetables together to make the stuffing. Okay, now the rice is all cooked up, the vegetables are chopped, and what I'm doing now is I'm just browning the mushroom caps in some butter and use a little bit of powdered thyme to give it some extra flavor and aroma. But we want to start these mushrooms, get them browned on the top, which will actually be the bottom, but once we've got that, we can kind of stir it around a little bit more to get it browned on the sides of the caps, because these things are rather curvy shaped. But we want to brown all 6 of the mushroom caps, then put them back in our baking dish. And when that is done, then we are going to start sauteing those vegetables. So that's part 1 of the saute preparation, and stand by for part 2. So now we have the vegetables, the celery, the apple, the onion, and even the mushroom stems that I have chopped up. Put a little more butter in the pan, about 4 more ounces of butter, give it something to saute with. And I added a few herbs, like a bit of, about a teaspoon of parsley, and a teensy little bit, like about a 1/4 teaspoon or less of oregano and marjoram. And then we just scoop these veggies into the pan. And they almost fill the pan up, so we want to stir pretty frequently, but that's what I will be doing for the next 15-20 minutes or so, is stirring this mixture until everything gets nice and soft and cooked and ready for mixing in with the rice to make our mushroom stuffing. And once that's done, we'll be ready to go into the oven. Alright, so now after several minutes of sauteing, we've got this nice vegetable mixture here. The onions are quite transparent and the other vegetables are beginning to be cooked, and it's ready for us to put in the rice. Now I have mixed the rice up with the sauteed vegetables, and we have our mushroom stuffing. So I am going to put a good dollop of it into each of these mushroom caps. Move the pan over here a little closer, and now we want to put a good heaping helping of this stuff into each cap. And there's actually quite a bit of this stuff, but don't panic if it's more than you need to stuff the mushrooms, because this mixture actually makes a very nice side dish in and of itself. You know, I like to eat it with white meats such as chicken or pork. I may be making a vegetarian entree, but I'm not a complete vegetarian. But this mix that I've made here is going to be quite tasty as a side dish for other meals. But in the meantime, we stuff our 6 mushroom caps, and once I have done that, I am going to put a little vegetable broth down in the pan so that it'll help the mushrooms to cook up. And then we are going to put it in the oven at 350 degrees for roughly 45 minutes. So come back in a little bit and you will see the results of the cooking. Now the stuffed mushrooms are out of the oven. They've been cooking for 45 minutes at 350 degrees. They were covered in tin foil. As you can see, some of the stuffing fell off and fell into the vegetable broth, but don't worry about that. The stuff that fell in the vegetable broth actually tastes pretty good. And we can just slide one of these up and onto a plate, and we are ready for a tasty supper. So, thank you for staying with us with the stuffed mushrooms episode of Dad's Diner. We'll see you next time when I come up with another good recipe.